Nathaniel Kinney. He moved to Taney County, Missouri in 1883. At that time, the county was a lawless land with crime running rampant and bad blood between neighbors, a hangover from the Civil War. Murders were common and never investigated. Nat Kinney, a tough 6'5" ex-Union Army veteran, had seen enough crime and violence and decided to do something about it. So on the evening of April 5, 1885, he called a meeting of honest, hard-working men on a treeless ridge known as a bald knob, just outside the town of Kirbyville. As large fires lit the area, 100 men listened to Kinney make a stirring speech about the need to do something about the lawlessness. As he held the bloody shirt of a recently murdered local, he inspired the assembled men to act. That night, the men voted to become regulators, and they called themselves the League of Law and Order, later known as the Baldnobbers to everyone else, friend or foe. Just days after their first meeting, the group broke into the Taney County Jail and kidnapped two brothers named Taylor. The brothers were known thugs and had beaten a storekeeper who was now a Baldnobber. The brothers were led to a tree on the outskirts of town and hung. A sign left on the bodies left no doubt that this would be the outcome for any troublemakers in the future. The group met regularly on the Bald Knob to plan their activities, up high and far from prying eyes and ears. They could rest assured that the identity of their next target or activity would be kept secret. The group grew quickly. Most men who joined up had ties to the Union Army, or had sympathies that lay with the Republican Party. But the large group soon started getting hard to handle. What started off with good intentions soon turned into something more sinister. Often old scores and grievances were settled against men with Confederate history, men who were Democrats, business rivals, or neighbors with land they wanted. Any man that they thought was sinning might get a visit from members of the group, men who hit their wives, men who were living in sin, or men who were not supporting their families would all be targets. Some got a warning before any action was taken. A bundle of sticks known as a wicker was left for the man to find, and he knew to change his ways. Neighboring Christian County had trouble when the railroad went from Springfield to Chadwick. The road brought with it the inevitable saloons, gambling, and other vices, as well as getting a lot of unwanted vagrant visitors, since the Taney Baldnobbers were formed. So Nat helped them form their own regulators. This particular group became far more violent than the original. When they were sworn in, they did so with a hangman's noose around their neck and a revolver resting against their chest, while taking an oath of death if they betrayed the group. This particular chapter wore masks of black fabric with cut-out eye and mouth holes sewn with a red buttonhole stitch, while the eyes and mouth were circled with white. The masks were topped with two horns made of black fabric stuffed with cork, as to portray the devil. Nat's original group never wore masks, as they felt what they were doing was the right thing and had nothing to hide. After a particularly violent visit to a home with children inside, that left two members of a family dead, community sentiment towards the group started to turn bad. A group called the Anti-Baldnobbers was formed, mostly with members with ties to the Confederacy or Democrat Party. The resulting violence between the groups captured the attention of the city papers around the country. Many wrote articles condemning the Missouri government for not acting on the trouble. The governor sent his adjutant general to meet with Nat Kinney and got his agreement that the Baldnobbers, for benefit of all concerned, should be disbanded. The neighboring Christian County group, however, continued their violent ways. Another family was terrorized in the night, and a few were killed in their beds. During the raid, a female in the house unmasked one of the group. Recognizing him, she took the information to the local sheriff. Members of the group were arrested for unlawful assembly and fined, but 4 were tried for murder. 1 escaped with help from a jailer, but in 1889 the other 3 members were hung in Ozark. 2 of the men were a father and son. One witness to the hanging said that they had to hang the son twice, as the first time the rope was too long, and when the trapdoor opened he fell to the dirt and broke his legs. He was also bleeding from the mouth, nose, and eyes. They carried him back up, made an adjustment, and hung him again. Although the Missouri vigilante groups had met their end and disbanded, the hatred in the community was still there. And in 1888, Nat Kinney was gunned down by an ex-anti-Baldnobber in a planned execution on the streets of Forsyth. The violence continued on sporadically for another decade, before it finally ended in 1899. Another violent chapter in the book of American history was finally over.